What up, motherfuckers? It's the hater, and it's time for another fan request video as part of Corona Mania up in this bitch. You understand what I'm saying? Because I listen to the fans, I listen to the people, and because, quite frankly, we're running out of ideas, motherfuckers. Luckily, Corona Mania, there's tomorrow. I'm gonna try to do a video tomorrow. That might be the only day that I don't make one because I have a lot of work. But Saturday and Sunday, we got WrestleMania. I don't know how that's going to work. I might do a video Saturday to review the first night or Sunday to review the second night. I think I might actually have to wait until Sunday just because I feel like it should be reviewed as one show. You know what I mean? It is one WrestleMania, and there might be some sort of synergy between the shows. So what happens on Saturday might mean nothing until something happens on Sunday. With that being said, today we're going to talk about Alpha Wolf's request to do a video on Velveteen Dream, Jericho, and AJ Styles, motherfucks. As usual, there's been absolutely no rehearsals, none of that bullshit, no notes being written down. I only write notes for my 25 reasons because, of course, I can't remember 25 reasons off the top. But we're going to talk about that. But first, as usual, subscribers, motherfucks. If you are someone that is watching this video, subscribe today. We're at 493, and I got about a week to get to 500. It's looking good, motherfucks. It's looking good. But I'd like to get to 500, and ideally 501, because we like to exceed our goals today, motherfucks. So, new subscriber, Nadav Ben Simon, or perhaps Nadav Ben Simon. I don't know. It could be either way, you know. Sounds like an Israeli name. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Let me know, motherfucks. So, who else we got? We got, shit, where was that guy? There was like some guy like Rated R Edge or something like that. He said he had to write it down. He said, I am a new subscriber, so Rated R Superstar Edge, I think it is. You sound familiar. I feel like I've seen you before, but if you're a new subscriber, then welcome, motherfucks. And of course, we got the newest subscriber, Mayor Matthew, motherfucks. Mayor Matthew, welcome, motherfucker. All right? So there we got it. Now, for all of you that, and happy birthday, Mayor Matthew. I just clicked on your page to take a better look at your picture, and it seems like it's your birthday today. So happy birthday, motherfucker. And with all that said, I just want to once again remind you, motherfucks, to subscribe if you haven't today. And now we're going to talk about Velveteen Dream, Jericho, and AJ Styles. We're going to start with the oldest of these three motherfucks, and that's going to be AJ Styles. I mean, sorry. He's an old bitch too, but it's going to be Jericho. All right, Jericho. Here's how I feel about Jericho. Jericho, for a long, long time, has been one of my favorite wrestlers. Now, I find Jericho to be one of the most charismatic people of all time, right, in terms of wrestling. But I will say this, when I started watching wrestling, Jericho started feuding with The Rock, and The Rock was my favorite wrestler at the time. So I was like, who the hell is this Rudy Poo, talking to The Rock like they're equals, right? I didn't really know anything about WCW. I remember Jericho's debut. I remember watching that, and I remember the countdown clock weeks before. But that's pretty much when I started watching wrestling. You know what I mean? Like when I started watching wrestling, I'm pretty sure the countdown clock was already a thing. You know, it was like in that 2 or 3 weeks. So when everyone had signs that said Jericho, Raw is Jericho, I remember as a child thinking to myself, how do these motherfucks know, number one, that the guy that's coming is Jericho? And how do they know that he's going to say Raw is Jericho? You know what I mean? Because I didn't know that this guy was like a WCW guy because I didn't watch WCW. Even though a lot of my classmates did, which was weird. A lot of them liked the Wolfpack and all the other shit. But anyways, yeah, so then I saw Jericho and I was like, oh, this guy's just like a goof. He's generic. You know what I mean? He's just like a blonde guy who's handsome and just does like some quasi-athletic moves. I never really was sold into it. I didn't get into like really enjoying Jericho until after like the invasion angle. Even in the invasion angle, I'm like, dude, this guy is clearly the last guy on the totem pole here. I mean, I understand that the invasion angle was actually kind of used to push Jericho. I mean, if anything, that's when Jericho went from mid-carder to main eventer. You know what I mean? Jericho and Angle, I think, are the ones that benefited the most from the invasion angle, right? But clearly, like, there was like a scene, I think it was that Survivor Series, where Vince is talking to his team, right? And in his team is Big Show, Kane, Taker, and The Rock, and Jericho. And it's like, dude, Jericho is clearly the guy that in real life wouldn't be there if Vince was putting his company on the line. You know what I mean? He'd put like, I don't know, some other big motherfucker like Farouk or something. You know what I mean? He'd put someone big and strong, right? But he put in Jericho, and Jericho ended up betraying them. So that's when I was like, oh, cool. Jericho's like, he's a piece of shit. And then he started growing his beard out, and that's when I really started liking him. When after the brand split, when him and Christian started teaming together, that's why Christian's one of my favorite wrestlers, because I really like his evolution from just tag team guy with Edge to tag team guy with Jericho, and then the Un-Americans or whatever, and then eventually going on and becoming like Intercontinental Champion, et cetera, right? So Jericho, that's when he started growing on me, and then he left. And I think that him leaving after Cena beat him was a good move. It was a great move because at that point, Jericho was so stale. In my opinion, he saved his career because he had like the medium length hair, the clean shaved look. He was gaining some weight. Cena looked like $1 million. He was like stronger than Jericho. He was better. Honestly, he was at that time. He was doing more moves too. He was more believable. He was clearly like the young guy that was gonna become something. And Jericho was just like stale. He was like he was just beat. He was beat to shit. Like at the time, people that were around Jericho, like Benoit and Angle, these guys are all pretty much surpassed Jericho. Like Kurt Angle was like in the best shape of his career. He was a beast, and Jericho was just like chubby and like short. I mean, let's be honest. You know what I mean? So he left. That was great. He came back. He was leaner, but he was just like at this point he just looked small as shit. You know what I mean? But he came back and he had the best run of his career. 2008 or 9 Jericho. I don't know. Whenever it was that he became like the guy in a suit that he would talk all condescendingly, that was great. He was amazing in that role. It fit him well. His charisma was off the charts. He looked great. You know what I mean? And he had some very memorable feuds. He had like a quasi-memorable feud with Batista. He had a very memorable feud with JBL. And he had honestly one of the best feuds of all time with Shawn Michaels. You know what I mean? That the whole I didn't really appreciate it as much, only because I thought Jericho was going to lose. You know what I mean? So I was like, this is kind of stupid. Like, does Michaels really need to bury Jericho? But Jericho won that feud. You know what I mean? And he didn't win it in the traditional sense, because what should have been their go-home match, HBK won that match. And then in one of the greatest pay-per-view twists of recent memory, at the championship scramble match, like I forget who it was, but someone was like eliminated from that match. Like they couldn't participate. So Jericho took their spot, right? And he was like beaten up because he had like a street fight with Michaels. And then through like some opportunist moves, right, he got the last pin. And the scramble match was the person who gets the last pin. The match continues for like 30 minutes. The person who gets the last pin is champion. And he, like Batista powerbombed Kane, and he was gonna pin Kane, right, to become champion. But then like Jericho pins someone else, because you don't have to pin the champion, you just pin anybody. Jericho pins someone else, and like after Jericho wins, the ref rings the bell, because like there was like 4 seconds left and Batista couldn't pin Kane fast enough. So Jericho becomes the new champion, right? And this was great for a couple of reasons. Number one, it set up a Jericho-Batista feud, and more importantly, it allowed the Jericho-Michaels feud to continue, because the next day Jericho was like, well, I lost the match, but guess what, motherfucks? I won the war. I'm the champion now. And he was the champion of Raw. You know what I mean? He wasn't the champion of SmackDown. He was like the real champion, which was a huge deal. You know what I mean? Because being the champion of SmackDown, let's be real, it's not the same thing as being the champion of Raw. Maybe now people are arguing that SmackDown's the A show, but back then for sure, no, absolutely not. You have to be the champion of Raw, or else it didn't count. You know, which kills me, because like that means that a lot of people that I like don't count as champions. But anyways, Jericho became the champion of Raw, and then he had like a fantastic tag team with Big Show where they wrestled DX. He had all these memorable moments, a memorable feud with Edge. He had so many like great moments during that run. You know what I mean? And then after that, like he kept coming back and he got more and more stale. You know what I mean? Like if you keep coming back, every subsequent return is less and less interesting. You know what I mean? And the least interesting one, honestly, was the one where they had those vignettes where it's like 2 kids in a school, and it's like this eerie message. It's like, oh, the stars will align. You know, it's fucking stupid. Jericho comes out, and he's just like he pretty much trolls the audience, doesn't say a word. They're all cheering him, and he's back to being a rock star. That's not what anyone wanted to see. People wanted to continue seeing him like talk shit and, you know, call people parasites and tapeworms, and have that amazing moment that he had with Shaq, where he was like one of the greatest burns in wrestling history, where Shaq is the guest host of Raw, and Jericho comes out and he says, in like the calmest voice, he's like, when I heard that the most dominant player in the NBA was hosting Raw, I automatically assumed it was Kobe Bryant. Rest in peace. You know what I'm saying? So that was fantastic, right? He really let Shaq know that, yo, you ain't shit. Like, I like Kobe, motherfucker. So that was awesome. But then when he came back and he was like this rock star persona, but he was like a heel, it just fell flat. He didn't do anything. You know what I mean? I don't even think he had anything like relevant. Like, he almost won the Royal Rumble, which would have been great. Had he won the Royal Rumble, which he should have won the Royal Rumble, like 100%, he should have won it that year. You know, because he came out and he just like picked up the mic. He hadn't talked at all. He said, "This Sunday, I'm winning the Rumble, and nothing will be the same ever again." You know, and he drops the mic, right? And then in the end, it's him and Sheamus wins the Rumble. And it's like, why did Sheamus win the Rumble? Like, they both ended up being in championship matches. Jericho happened to be on the Raw championship match against CM Punk, the much more compelling match than Sheamus Daniel Bryan. You know what I mean? So Jericho should have won that, and it would have made his return a bit more serious. But because he lost that, and he lost like 15 subsequent matches to CM Punk, and then after that, CM Punk had like a 5-year title run, Jericho pretty much became obscure, and this return meant nothing. You know, they had these vignettes, and it meant nothing. And then every subsequent return was worse and worse. You know what I'm saying? Like, when this whole thing with Owens, you know, I know I've seen Jericho in interviews being like, that's like some of the best work in his career. It's not some of the best work in his career. Absolutely not. When he was evil, heel Jericho, he had the best matches he's ever had, like after 2009. He had those matches with Rey Mysterio. He had like, obviously, the Shawn Michaels matches. He had like incredible matches. You know what I mean? And the matches with Edge. He had great matches, memorable feuds. But when he came back with Owens, first of all, he was teamed up with Owens, who he had to carry because Owens sucks. You know what I mean? And then like, he was like, oh, no one saw it coming when Owens betrayed me. Because he's like, we teased it so many times. Dude, of course it was going to happen. What was going to be the conclusion to that? You know? They're just friends forever? No, obviously, like, as soon as they became a team, everyone knew it was only a matter of time before one of them turned on the other. And probably it was going to be Owens because he was the heel and he's the young guy. So, since that, of course, Jericho went downhill significantly. Then, I will give credit where credit's due. You know what I mean? I talk a lot of shit about AEW and New Japan. But Jericho going to New Japan was a big fucking deal. You know, a lot of people are like, they don't need Jericho. Well, Jericho put that company on the map. Let's be real. Okado was not selling any tickets, motherfucks. Maybe he was selling out one show a year in the Tokyo Dome, right? Where if you put me in the main event against AJ 2000, you know, we would sell out the Tokyo Dome too once a year. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. So, but Jericho coming in there gave it automatic prestige. Jericho pretty much said with that, because Jericho has been inactive for a long time in different periods. So he was inactive for a while when TNA was picking up steam. And a lot of people thought he would go to TNA, you know, and that would have been a huge pickup, right? But he didn't. But now that he has the opportunity to go back to WWE, he ended up going to New Japan, right? Because he wanted to have some good matches with Kenny Omega, etc., whatever the case may be, motherfucks. But he did that and he put that company on the map. And I cannot downplay that. You know what I mean? Like, people say, oh, Jericho's the GOAT. Like, that's a new argument now. Jericho's the GOAT because, like, you know, he's Jericho. But let's be real, motherfucks. Let's be real. He's, like, a lot of people could have done that. Like, if Shawn Michaels wanted to come out of retirement and go have a 5-star match with Tanahashi, he would get, like, a 10-star match. You know what I mean? Even now that he can't wrestle anymore. He would get a 10-star match because he's Shawn Michaels. And it would be, like, he would be considered the GOAT again. But the facts are what they are. Jericho is the one that actually did it, you know? Doesn't matter who could have done it. He actually did it, and he put that company on the map. And then after that, and we're getting a little tied up on time here because I want to talk about two other motherfucks. But after that, Jericho, he pretty much, let's be real, he founded AEW. Nobody gives a rat's ass about the Young Cucks and Cucky Omega and Cucky Rhodes. Nobody cares about these four assholes. Like, I mean, I give them props too. I got to give them props. I got to give Cody and the Young Bucks props for starting a company. You know what I mean? Because they could have easily just taken, like, the Elite and gone to ROH and been like, yo, we demand creative control, right? Because, like, now we're like hot shit, you know? But they did it. They started their own thing because they really want to do it their way. And it just so happens that their way is retarded, but they're still doing it their way. But if it weren't for Jericho, no one would give a fuck. Like, nobody, like, do you think, like, the Khan family would, I mean, they might, because Tony Khan is a fucking cuck, but, like, do you think that, like, his old man would be like, wait, son, you want money to start a company with these New Japan jobbers? We don't even have 1 star. That's probably exactly what happened. And the son was like, no, Dad, we have Jericho. And he's like, oh, even I've heard of this guy. Yeah, let's do it, right? So Jericho is the reason why people like me gave a rat's ass and wanted to watch AEW. I mean, I would probably still watch it because, I'm the hater. But like other people that I know were like, yo, I'm not watching this garbage. But Jericho's there, so I'll give it a shot. So Jericho has had an incredible career. But unfortunately, he is starting to expose himself as a guy who fundamentally just does not, let's be real, motherfucks. He just does not have what it takes anymore. In the ring, he does have what it takes. He can still go, but it's his appearance and his lack of responsibility, right? He needs to just say, yo, I'm getting fat because I'm old. But no, he's making it seem as if, I'm getting fat because I want to be bigger and stronger. Shut the fuck up. No, you don't. That has nothing to do with that, motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? It has nothing to do with that. It has to do almost entirely with the fact that you're old now. It's as simple as that, cuck. So there you have it. That's what I gotta say about that, But Jericho, great wrestler. We can't deny the fact that Jericho is one of the best wrestlers of all time. Now, is he like a top 10 wrestler? Immediately you might think yes. But then I start listing wrestlers like Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Sting, John Cena, Kurt Angle, who else? Taker. There's a lot of people that will come before Shawn Michaels. You know what I'm saying? Before Jericho. There are a lot. Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, where do you put them? Are they above or below Jericho? Who do you put all these quasi-legends, like the legends that aren't Hulk Hogan, you know what I mean? Or that aren't Ric Flair, like Dusty Rhodes. Is he better than Jericho? Who the fuck knows? You know what I'm saying? We don't know that. So, but that remains to be seen because, Jericho's career is not over. So good for him, I give him props that he keeps going and he's trying to put young people over and he's trying to put an entire company over, If anyone can do it, honestly, it's going to be someone like Jericho. Next, let's talk about AJ Styles. Now, I remember when I first watched the first ever episode of TNA Impact. Now, I don't know if it was the first ever on TV or the first ever online because I watched it for a couple of weeks online. So it probably was the first ever on TV. And they did a poll on TNA.com to vote for which wrestler should open the show. And the wrestler they chose was AJ Styles, and he wrestled Alex Shelley. I think it was Alex Shelley. And he beat him with the Styles Clash. And I was so impressed by AJ Styles because of this guy's combination of speed, strength, and honestly, size to a degree as well. Because he wrestles like he's Rey Mysterio, or he did, but he doesn't look like Rey Mysterio, I'm not saying AJ Styles is this big guy, but he looks taller than he is, or he did when he was because he was much skinnier. So I'm not saying he's fat now, but he was much more lean, right? And less jacked. So he looked taller, and he was taller than people like Alex Shelley and Petey Williams, right? And he was competing with them, and he was doing the same kind of shit. So it's if the options are Petey Williams, who I like very much, or AJ Styles is better because he's also bigger and he can do things like lift Samoa Joe. You know what I mean? Petey Williams might not be able to do that. So there you go. AJ Styles is the perfect hybrid wrestler. And in TNA, in my opinion, he was shortchanged time and time again. There was a point where it seemed to me that they had the Christian coalition, which was Christian, Tomko, and AJ Styles. And to me, I'm like, all right, the whole point of this is to eventually have AJ Styles break from this group and become the face of TNA that he's supposed to be, considering that he's AJ Styles. He is the TNA guy, right? But no, they put him in Team Angle. And again, I'm like, this is the perfect opportunity to set up AJ versus Angle. And they did, but it was meaningless because it was eventually overshadowed by the inception of the main event Mafia, right? And it took a fucking eternity and a lot of other storylines for AJ Styles to eventually beat Sting for the TNA title, but he didn't even beat Sting. It was like a 5-man match, and Sting kind of passed the torch. Sting was like, all right, I'm going to eliminate myself from this match. You become champion, kid. Because he had the first of many, I'm not sure about myself storylines. I don't know why he had so many of those storylines, but he did. Then eventually the same shit happened where AJ Styles went his own way, and he took the title off Bully Ray, right? So AJ Styles has had several opportunities to become the man. And a lot of times, they've pulled the plug on it prematurely. So it is my opinion that AJ Styles was legitimately screwed by TNA. And if there's any wrestler that I'm happy made it to the big leagues, it's AJ Styles. He went to New Japan where he had to quote unquote pay his dues. You know what I'm saying? He didn't have to. Just WWE wanted to dick around with him and be like, oh, we're going to sign you for less, all this other shit. But eventually they signed him for a lot because they realized that this guy can still go, motherfuckers. you know, and a lot of people don't even know about TNA. They haven't even watched TNA. So they really think that AJ Styles is this New Japan guy. Absolutely not, motherfuckers. He had like 10 matches in his entire career in New Japan. Who gives a fuck about New Japan? He's a TNA guy, and that's why WWE signed him, right? In New Japan, he had some decent matches. They kept blowing it out of the water. They're like, oh, like it could be the best match of all time, AJ versus Nakamura. And it was all right, but it wasn't an incredible match, you know? Because Nakamura has 3 moves, and even AJ Styles can't pull an incredible match out of his asshole, right? So then AJ Styles eventually gets signed to WWE and gets the all-star treatment. The same treatment that Gallows and Anderson got as well. Because I think when they signed Gallows and Anderson, I think they meant for them to be like, by now, like 7-time tag team champions and be one of the best tag teams of all time. But unfortunately, I think that's when the New Day was really starting to pick up steam. So it's like, okay, we got the New Day, motherfucks. So like, now we also have to push new tag teams. So back to the line you go. But the reason why I think that this was the case was because both Gallows Anderson and AJ Styles, which are 2 entities, the tag team and the singles wrestler, both of them were put directly on like Monday Night Raw or SmackDown, right? They were not put on fucking bullshit NXT. How many people does that happen to? You know what I'm saying? Very few people get taken from elsewhere and get put directly into, Raw or SmackDown, right? These are people that are just really, really good people, or the people that WWE thinks really highly of, right? AJ Styles is not young, but neither is Bobby Roode, motherfucks, and he was put into NXT because they're like, all right, you may or may not become great. Same thing with Drew McIntyre. You may or may not become great. So NXT you go. Adam Cole, NXT you go. We don't have time for you. You know what I'm saying? But very few people, historically as well, have come back and been put in like main events or have been put in title matches or have been put directly onto the main roster. So for example, when Del Rio came back, they didn't have to put him in NXT. They're like, this is Del Rio, right? We've always thought highly of this guy. There he is. Rey Mysterio came back, motherfucks. Nobody said, let's put him in NXT. Nobody even considered that shit. NXT is for jobbers, man. I mean, let's be real, motherfucks. You know, I like a lot of NXT guys. I like Damian Priest. I like Keith Lee, but they are overrated. You know, everyone's like, oh, Keith Lee's the next big thing. He may or may not be, motherfucks. It's very possible that Keith Lee will become the next big thing, but it's more likely than not that he will become the next, like, Rusev. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no reason to believe that Keith Lee will have a better career than Rusev. You know, he probably will have a worse career than Rusev, if we're being honest, because Rusev also had some legit WrestleMania moments. You know what I'm saying? So, there you have it, you know? Let's not get too excited about the NXT guys. You know, there's only one NXT guy to be excited about, maybe 2, and we'll get to that in a second. But AJ Styles, unlike the NXT jobbers, he was catapulted directly to the main roster because they're like, all right, kid, there's something here for you. You know what I'm saying? You're not a jobber. You bring something to the table, motherfucks, right? When Brock Lesnar comes back, doesn't go to NXT. You know what I mean? There's very few people that just don't belong in NXT. That they are so much better than NXT that they don't get put there, you know? And people, don't get me wrong, Gallows and Anderson should have gone to NXT. They're just not that good. Like, to me, you know, when WWE and AEW, like, overhype, like, Japanese wrestling is ridiculous. You know, like, it started with Tensai. When Tensai came in, they're like, oh, Tensai dominated Japanese wrestling. No, he didn't. He was like a tag team champion with Tomko. He wasn't like the New Japan World Champion. He was a tag team champion with Tomko. That's not dominating Japan. That's being a tag team champion with Tomko. That's kind of like saying, like, oh, Kushida came here and won the NXT tag team titles. He dominated American wrestling. No, he's Kushida. He's a jobber. You understand what I'm saying? So they've been doing this with everybody else, you know? They did it with Gallows and Anderson, who, like, Gallows and Anderson, for those that don't know, are the logical extension of Tensai and Tomko. Because that's how it happened. It was Tensai and Tomko, and then Tensai left, and then Tomko started teaming with Carl Anderson, and then Tomko left, Carl Anderson started teaming with Gallows, and then that's what happened, right? That's why they all use the Magic Killer, you know what I'm saying? It's like the same tag team. So, the same way that Tensai dominated Japan, Gallows and Anderson dominated Japan too. But they didn't really dominate Japan. I mean, they were tag team champions a few times, but they were tag team champions. They weren't these, like, big deals, right? Nakamura, he was a big deal, but he sucks, so he didn't get anything out of it either. But the way that they overhype these Japanese connections is ridiculous. The only person that came out of Japan that is legit is AJ Styles. In the history of that country, the only person that came out of New Japan that is relevant is AJ Styles. And he didn't even come out of New Japan. You know what I'm saying? He came out of TNA. But him and maybe Tajiri and, like, Masato Tanaka to a degree, but everybody else has pretty much become a jobber. Let's be real. Nakamura, jobber. Hideo Itami, jobber. Kushida, jobber, motherfucks. You know what I'm saying? Io Shirai and all those other broads, jobbers. They're all jobbers, man. No one good has ever come out of it. And maybe you might argue Kenny Omega, but I'm not going to argue that because I think he's not that good either. So there you go, motherfucks. That's what I gotta say about AJ Styles. And then the rest is history. AJ Styles came to WWE and became champion, which was fucking awesome. I really enjoyed that. And in my opinion, his matches with John Cena were some of the best matches, I'm gonna say it, motherfuckers, of the decade. Some of the best matches, honestly, of all time. Like the match where AJ Styles lost to Cena. You know, first of all, I'm very happy that AJ Styles was able to beat Cena clean, right? That's a huge accomplishment no matter when it happens. He beat him clean. That was amazing, right? But then it's like, whoa, kid. You beat him clean, but this is still John Cena, right? And he had his number, and then eventually Cena beat him to win the 16th title, which was a huge deal because that ties him with the record, and he beat the guy that kept beating him. There was like 7 stories into that entire match, right? And it was better than anything I've ever seen in AEW or New Japan my entire life. So there you have it, motherfucks. Lick my ass. Next, we're going to talk about probably the most interesting of these 3 wrestlers, and that is the Velveteen Dream. Now, in my life, I have chosen 3 wrestlers, right, that I have said this guy will become a huge deal. These 3 wrestlers, and the first time I saw them, right? Perhaps not the first time, but when John Cena got the rap gimmick, I'm like, this guy is the future. When AJ Styles, when the first time I saw AJ Styles in TNA, I'm like, this guy is gonna be a world champion. He's gonna be in WWE one day, 100%. Then there was Adam Cole. I chose him too, and I was right too because he's made it, you know. But the 4th and most important one of these, not most important one, but like because Cena's the most important one, but Velveteen Dream. As soon as I saw him on Tough Enough, I thought to myself, this guy's not winning it, but this guy is going to be the one that comes out of this in the best position. And I was right. There was no doubt in my mind because I saw him and I was like, this kid's 19. He looks like he's about 25 in terms of his mass, right? This kid is a freak athlete. You know what I'm saying? They keep telling me, oh, Ricochet this. Oh, isn't this guy athletic? No. Velveteen Dream is a freak athlete, motherfucks. This guy was like 19, and he had like a 10-pack, and he didn't have like a skinny guy 10-pack. He had the like I lift hard 10-pack. So there's that. 2, he's young as shit, and he already has the idea of what wrestling is, and he has charisma. These are things that either cannot be taught, or it's really hard to teach them, especially to this generation of dweebs, right? With that being said, Velveteen Dream has also put on some incredible matches. And what I expect from Velveteen Dream is excellence, right? I expect him to be one of the few people in his generation, right, to actually do awesome things. I've already said it before. The way that I would book Velveteen Dream is I would have him win this NXT title from Adam Cole, who sucks ass. Then you have Adam Cole come to the roster, do whatever the fuck he needs to do. Then eventually, you have Velveteen Dream either drop the title to the next big prospect or have him leave with the title and he joins the Royal Rumble. Like, maybe next Royal Rumble, if they hurry up, they can get it done for that one. Maybe the one after. Then, Velveteen Dream wins the debut Royal Rumble, either while still being NXT champion or after recently dropping it. He wins it. Then he goes on to WrestleMania, motherfucks. And then the person who's champion at the time loses the title in the next month or two to John Cena, right? And then you have John Cena, the 17-time world champion, right? Now John Cena is the undisputed GOAT. You have Cena against the young Velveteen Dream. You must also do this relatively soon before Cena leaves wrestling forever, right? So now you have Velveteen Dream and Cena. This is a dream match, motherfucks. I don't use that term lightly, as some of you know. This is a dream match, right? Cena versus Velveteen Dream has the appeal of Cena versus The Rock. You understand what I'm saying? Now, obviously, it doesn't have the same level of appeal because The Rock and Cena are better than The Rock and Velveteen Dream. I mean, better than Cena and Velveteen Dream. But it's as close as you're gonna get. For John Cena, who is obviously this generation's, or at least his generation's clear #1 star, for John Cena to have a moment like The Rock had before him and like Hogan had before him, he must wrestle someone who is going to be the next star. Just like The Rock wrestled Cena, who was going to be obviously that time period star. Cena must wrestle Velveteen Dream at WrestleMania in the main event for the world title. This needs to happen. If they haven't written this down in stone yet, they're retarded. Do this while Cena's still young, and then maybe in 10 years, when Cena's in his 50s, he can come back for one more match against the next Velveteen Dream, against the next guy, someone who's like, 15 years old now. He can come back against someone like that. That's what you need to do with Velveteen Dream. And then you have him squash inferior wrestlers like Adam Cole, like fucking Isaiah Swerve Scott, inferior humans, right? You just have him beat the shit out of these guys, and you make him the next John Cena. He's gonna have to shed the Velveteen Dream gimmick, because that's not like a marketable gimmick to children, but he can just become the next Cena. You know what I'm saying? He has what it takes, motherfuckers. Velveteen Dream is, in my opinion, one of the easily top 5 wrestlers right now, overall. He's definitely the #1 guy in NXT. It's not even close. People are like, oh, Keith Lee. No, Keith Lee is inferior to Velveteen Dream, who is much, much better than him. Velveteen Dream is better than like almost, if I had to choose my top 5 wrestlers right now, it would have to be like not counting Cena and I guess not counting Lesnar, because he's not like, Lesnar is around now, so, but yeah, we just won't count Lesnar. The top 5, and this is how shitty wrestling is, because the top 5 are these motherfuckers. But AJ Styles, I have to put him at the clear #1 in terms of like his in-ring ability. Jericho, I have to put him there too, because he can still go in the ring, and he's pretty much carrying an entire company on his back. Then after that, I don't know, motherfuckers. I'd say it might be Velveteen Dream. I think he's better than Rollins. I do. He's better than Rollins. Like Reigns, I can see why people like Reigns. I don't particularly like Reigns that much, so that's why he's not going to make that list. But that's it, man. I can't even think of 2 other motherfuckers, because at that point, I just be lying. You know what I mean? Like, none of these guys are good enough. Oh, Pentagon, shut the fuck up. So there you have it. Coincidentally, these 3 wrestlers that I just talked about, courtesy of Alpha Wolf, are also 3 of my favorite wrestlers right now, if not my 3 favorite wrestlers. Because, if I can't count people like fucking Goldberg, Cena, these motherfuckers, then yeah, I think that's what, I think Velveteen Dream is better. Let's look at the WrestleMania card and talk about who is better and who is worse than Velveteen Dream. You know what I'm saying? Let's do that real fast. Maybe while we look at this Wikipedia article, maybe we'll see something like maybe how the matches are broken apart. We don't see it. Okay, Drew McIntyre, I like him. Never mind. Drew McIntyre, I would put him above Velveteen Dream. He's just awesome. Like, he would beat the shit out of Velveteen Dream in real life, and that carries a lot of weight for me. Roman Reigns and Goldberg, we can't use Goldberg. I think he's better than Reigns. Cena, we can't use Cena. He's way better than The Fiend. Undertaker, obviously we can't use him. AJ Styles, I already put him on the list. Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins, he's better than both of them combined a million times. The Miz, Morrison, New Day, and the Usos. He's better than all 6 of those guys combined. Street Profits, Austin Theory, and Angel Garza. Okay, that's like a pre-show match. Aleister Black and Lashley. Okay, Lashley's cool. I do like Lashley, I'm not going to lie. But problem with Lashley is he's wrestling Aleister Black, and he's going to lose. Who gives a fuck? Better than Elias, better than Corbin. Edge, I don't count him yet, because he's not really back. Orton, okay, Orton is better than Velveteen Dream. Sami Zayn, Cesaro, Nakamura, Daniel Bryan, and Drew Gulak. He's better than all those guys. And he's better than Otis, and he's better than Dolph Ziggler for sure. So there you have it, motherfuckers. And yet he's not on the card. But people like Elias are still on there. How the fuck is Elias still around? This guy has accomplished absolutely nothing. He's like the next Sami Zayn. At least Sami Zayn became IC champion. Elias has done nothing. So there you have it, motherfuckers. I'm going to leave it at that for now. This video, how long was this video? 33 minutes. That's not so bad. But yeah, please subscribe. We're at 493. We need to get the 400 to 500 by what? By Monday or something like that? I don't even know, motherfuckers. But yeah, stay dirty, stay tuned, and subscribe, motherfuckers.